everybody and welcome back to my channel. So I'm going to kick off the ESC 2023 proceedings by just giving a short little update on what's going on at the moment. So we're now in September, and so that means that it's virtually a new ESC year. So any music that is now released from this point can very well be considered as a potential ESC entry. So I checked on Wikipedia this morning, and as of this morning, there are 29 confirmed countries that will be attending next year's contest. Of course, that being hosted in the UK, somewhere in the UK, we're not entirely sure yet. We have got 7 shortlisted cities, and I will go into that a little bit further. So yeah, maybe it's a bit more than just a little update. So 29 confirmed countries, UK are hosting, so that's the third time the Big Five have hosted, well, since the Big Five was created. Ukraine, obviously, because they won last year's contest, they will get an automatic grand final position next year. So, of course, that being said, the remainder of those countries that are not in the Big Five will be taking part in those 2 semis. So we've also got a lot more national finals coming our way. Malta are redoing their national final from the last season, and they're expanding it as well. I think it's like quarterfinals of some sort. Of course, Portugal are returning back with Festival de Canso. Spain are using Benidorm Fest again. Italy obviously be using San Remo. Belgium are returning back to a national final for the first time since 2016. There is a lot going on. And of course, in December, we do have Festival Cangas, but we're now also having Vidbeer as well. So we've got 2 national finals in December. Which one will be coming first? I don't know. I imagine it will be Vidbeer. But we've also got that heading our way as well. So we've got plenty to look forward to in the coming months. So, and of course, we've got our first confirmed artist. All the way back in, I think it was either late July or early August, there were rumours floating around that Noah Carell, I'm not sure I've said that right, and I do apologise for that. It was rumoured around that she would be going for Israel, and then it was confirmed a few weeks ago that she would be. So we have got our first confirmed artist already, and of course any song internal could drop at any moment now, so who knows? So yeah, those are the little mini updates that we've got, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to talk about the 7 shortlisted cities that could very well be hosting next year's contest. So I did write a blog post around this I don't think it was a couple of weeks ago, I think it might be a couple of weeks ago now. Point is, I did write a blog post around this, and this will be more in depth than this video will be, so if you want to take a look at the blog post, by all means go ahead. The link is in the comments section. It's about a 20-minute read, but if you skim it, you could probably condense it down to 10. It just depends on how quick you are reading. Of course, it was confirmed that the UK would take over as host, and when that happened, media went absolutely mad. Cities everywhere started expressing their interest, and then of course cities started making their bids, and it was condensed down to 7. So, as you can see on your screen now, the picture is up of all the 7 shortlisted cities, with 6 being in England, 5 being in the north of England, 1 being in the Midlands, and we've got Glasgow up in Scotland. As for Cardiff and the rest of Wales, Cardiff did initially submit a bid, but they had to withdraw that bid because they just couldn't secure the dates for the venue that they had in question, which was the Principality Stadium. Which it would have been lovely to have hosted it there because of the very large size capacity. I think it holds around 70,000, so would have been an absolute spectacle, but I just don't think they could secure the dates, and I don't think they've got the infrastructure for it, so sadly Wales is a miss. Belfast did actually go and submit a bid, but it was rejected in the initial stages by the EBU and the BBC. As to why, I'm not entirely sure. My guess might be, again, infrastructure, but I don't know. I'm going to talk about each city one by one, and from there go into a little bit of depth of what they've got on offer, could it work for them, etc. So, being a contest held in a particular area, you obviously need certain requirements to be able to host the contest. Infrastructure being a major key, you need high levels of accommodation for the spectators, delegations, press, artists, you name it. You need good transport networks to be able to get people to and from the venue, etc. You need an international airport nearby. You also need a good sized venue, at least 10,000 seating. You obviously need a roof on it. You need the time available to organise the events, so you need around 6 to 7 weeks. Completely clear of events, so that could be a massive deciding factor. I'm trying to think of what else you need. You need quite a few things. You also need a room for a press centre, so that's probably not as major, but you do need to look to that as well. And also, you also need the required funding because although the host broadcaster will cough up so much of the money, and then the rest of the I can't speak today, participating nations will also contribute some money. The local area do need to add some funds to it as well. And not to mention, this is still Ukraine's victory. So, this is a special requirement that you need to be able to show Ukrainian culture within this contest. So, the Ukrainian broadcaster will be working alongside the BBC to enable to do this. So, this is a joint project effectively. So, this is still Ukraine's victory. It will still be Ukraine's way of hosting, but the BBC and the UK will just be providing the infrastructure basically. In saying that, I'm now going to take a look at the seven cities and talk about each of them. I can't exactly explain how Ukrainian culture will come into this. This, of course, is now down to the individual cities to be able to present a more in-depth bid to the EBU and the BBC, uh, detailing how exactly they can host this contest and do it successfully. And then, of course, they will choose the winner, respective host city then, maybe in a few weeks. I think it's late September, early October when we find out. So who knows? So I'm going to kick off with the city that's the front runner at the moment by an overwhelming majority to host this contest, and that being Glasgow. Scotland last hosted in 1972, back in Edinburgh. So 50 or so years on, it would be a great thing for Scotland to be able to showcase this event once more. So they intend on using the OVO Hydro Arena for their venue, which has around 12,000 capacity in seating. So it's a big enough size, it's quite, accommodating. They've been known to host international events before. They've hosted the Mobo Awards back in 2013 and 2016. And of course, they hosted the Commonwealth Games back in 2014, and the venue was used for some of the events that went on. The venue we're talking about was also featured in the Eurovision film Story of Fire saga back in 2020. So it might be somewhat recognisable to ESC fans already, and I think it would be kind of cool if we actually got that as an actual venue rather than just a fictional location. At the moment, in terms of availability, there are around 3 events that are taking place during April. So 2 of these, if actually no, all 3 are rescheduled dates, and these are spread around April. So you've got Celine Dion, she's got 2 nights. At the start of April, we've got Sabaton on the 18th. And we've got Magic Mike, who have got a big tour around the UK. They will be performing at the venue on the 25th. So if they could try and move the dates, that would be great, but it's going to be quite awkward. You can't even put them in June because they've still got quite a few dates there as well. There's one event due to take place at the end of May, so Andre Rieu's also got a big UK tour, and he's supposed to be performing there on, where was it supposed to be? On the 27th, so right at the end of the month. Glasgow's additional benefits, I guess, other than having that recognition of hosting things, is that they have an exhibition centre right next door to them. So the SEC Centre, it's the biggest exhibition centre in Scotland. That could work very well as a press centre. There's also an auditorium within that area as well, so that could come in handy for various other events as well. There's also a train station that connects all of it together, and it can get a little overwhelming during concerts from what I've looked at, but I think they could probably put extra services on in the, say, if they were to host a contest. Well, they've got the infrastructure as well. They've got good amounts of accommodation available. They've also got the transport there. They've got a little subway that works around the city centre. Doesn't necessarily serve the venue, but I think it would be good in terms of transportation for concert goers, etc. So you're travelling by air. The good thing for Glasgow is they've got 3 international airports right on their doorstep. So rather than having to say travel to Manchester or travel to Heathrow and work your way up, you could very well travel directly into Scotland. So they've got Edinburgh International, they've got Glasgow Prestwick and Glasgow itself. They offer domestic as well as international flights across all three, and I think it would be easier probably to travel by air than it would be by rail because, as I said, rail fares here are extremely expensive, and I'd rather say this now than people find out later on. I can understand why it's favourite. It's a big favourite to host. I think it would also put Scotland back on the map as well as showcasing that they are capable of hosting such events and doing it well. More so for Scotland's sake than for the rest of the UK, but that's how I see it. So from here, I'm going to move into England, cross the border, and I'm going to look at the northeast section. So that being Newcastle, Leeds, and Sheffield. So I'm going to start off working my way north, down south, and I'm going to start with Newcastle. Newcastle aren't really known to have hosted major international events, so say if Newcastle did get given this, it would put Newcastle back on the map. So they intend to use the Utility Arena as their venue. It is smaller in size, it's only 11,000, but it still is above the threshold of 10 that is required. So they used to be home to the Newcastle Vipers, which is their city's ice hockey team, so they have used the venue frequently for various events. In terms of music, they've gone on to stage the X Factor auditions back in 2012, and of course, in the meantime, it's also home to a number of concerts from various artists. The main advantage, I guess, for Newcastle is that their venue is very close to the city centre, and that's got very good transport networks. So if you're travelling to the venue, at least you haven't got to go too far to get to the venue from, say, the train station. Since as the local station's, I think, only a short walk away, and Newcastle's main train station is within a mile, so it's, I think, network transport links is quite good. In terms of the venue itself and its availability, unlike Glasgow, this is actually really, really up Newcastle's alley. There's only one event that's due to take place. Well, the last time I looked, at least, there was one event due to take place, and that was Magic Mike. That's on the 27th of April. So they could very well move the date slightly forward and or slightly back, and they'd have that good 6-7 weeks clear availability to be able to host that contest. I did do a little bit of research of where they could very well host the red carpet, turquoise carpet, whichever you want to call it, which effectively opens up Eurovision week and is the opening ceremony. They could very well host it along Quayside. It's been redeveloped since over the last so many years. I think it looks quite good. It does look a bit touristy. I think it could pair quite well. Decent amount of accommodation available. They've got Newcastle International Airport nearby. And of course, if there are no direct flights into Newcastle, tourists and concert goers could very well travel to Scotland and then work their way south to Newcastle, or they could very well work their way to Leeds and go north. The good thing is that there are airports surrounding Newcastle, so at least they have got that option there if needed. I know this in terms of the odds, it's more towards the bottom end of the scale, but never say never. I would like to see Newcastle actually get some events because you don't really hear a lot of things, but it would be nice to see a different city being put on the map, being truly honest. So yeah, that's how I feel about that. So working my way a little bit south, going into West Yorkshire, and I'm going to talk about Leeds. Bear in mind, the cities I've talked about so far, I have not yet been to, so this is just purely based on research and not just first-hand knowledge. So if I have missed bits out, I do apologise for that. If you do come from the areas and you know more about how they could host it, feel free to add it in the comments. I think it's a great way of me learning stuff as well about respective areas. But anyways, in terms of Leeds, they intend on using the First Direct Arena as their venue. They also hosted the MOBA Awards, a bit like Glasgow, but they did it in 2015. They also hosted the Arius Awards between 2016 and 2018, apparently, so they've done quite a bit. Given the fact that this only opened in 2013, so it's only been open for 9 years, that's actually quite impressive. It's quite a big venue, so it has a capacity of just around 14 odd thousand, so much bigger than Newcastle and Glasgow. I think it would be a good thing to host as well. I think the higher number of spectators would be interesting because we've gone for smaller venues over the last so many years. So having a bigger size venue again would be quite nice to see. And unlike a lot of the shortlisted nations, the venue is right in the heart of the city. So in terms of navigation, being able to travel from hotels over to the venue, I think that would actually be a lot easier to do so than maybe having to jump on a train, for instance, and then traveling to the venue that way, or getting on a bus, etc. It's more or less within walking distance, so I think having a city that's easier to navigate, I think, would be a great benefit. Local airport, which is Leeds Bradford, offers flights around Europe as well as. I don't know if they offer them domestically. I know they offer them around Europe though, so that kind of helps. There isn't a direct rail link into the city, but there is a bus link from what I've noticed. So there still is that connection, which is good. I think the downside in terms of their bid is the availability of the venue because unlike Newcastle, which has only got one event, and Glasgow that's got a few events, there are 5 events taking place in April and May, and 4 of these are in April. It's throughout the month, so it would be quite awkward to try and reschedule those dates. So looking at it, I think this would be a crucial deciding factor into whether Leeds do actually get the bid or not. So, likewise with Newcastle, if Leeds did ultimately get this gig and host a ESC next year, it would put them right back on the map, and I think, again, would be another good thing. So, next up, I'm going further south into South Yorkshire, and I'm going to be talking about Sheffield. So, first city I actually have been to, albeit I've only been once. So, again, purely based on research rather than actual first hand knowledge. They also have a venue called the Utilita Arena. Yeah, there's 3 in England, there's Birmingham as well, but I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. So, yeah, the Utilita Arena, a little bit like most venues, have got a decent size. This holds around 13,600. They do house their own ice hockey team, and I believe the end of the season is around late March, if that. So I think they've got that little bit of extra capacity. The venue has gone on to host the International Indian Film Academy Awards back in 2007, but researching things, I haven't noticed anything major as of that point since. So again, much like Newcastle, if Sheffield were to get given the contest, it would put Sheffield right back on the map, and I think that again would be a very good thing. The city is twinned with Donetsk, so they do have that link to Ukraine to begin with, so they could include that in their bid and highlight that the nature that's tied between the two nations. Again, similar to Newcastle, they've got very few events going on at the venue, so they've only got 2 events going on between the timescale that's required. So planning the contest would be much easier than, say, the likes of Leeds trying to do it. so that does work to their advantage. The disadvantage, I guess, is the fact that you have to travel out to get to the venue. It's not in the heart of the city centre, so it's around halfway between Sheffield city centre and the town of Rotherham. So you would need transport or private transport, etc., to be able to get to the venue. But you've got trams, you've got buses, which both serve the venue, so there is that connection. If you do, say, travel by car, I did find out that the car park is cashless, so you'd have to book and pay in advance. So, just a little thing to highlight there. I think the big disadvantage for Sheffield, though, is despite having the venue, despite having the accommodation, it's the travel connections. They do have a local airport at the moment, so Sheffield Doncaster. I'd say it's local, it's around about 18 or so miles, I think, away from Sheffield. Since the COVID pandemic took place, the numbers naturally have dwindled, and at the moment they're unsure whether the airport is viable to be able to continue serving flights around the globe. So the airport might very well close by the time the contest goes ahead, so that might be quite critical in terms of Sheffield actually getting the bid. Um, However, Leeds Bradford isn't too far away either. That's the only other one that serves Yorkshire. But there is also East Midlands Airport, not too far away as well, so they do have a backup if needed. So again, like Newcastle, it's in terms of the odds, it is down the bottom end, but again, I wouldn't necessarily rule them out. Okay, so next up, I've now touched upon the northeast. I'm gonna move westward and touch upon the northwest. So, two cities in the running in the northwest of England to take on the contest, that being Manchester and Liverpool. And first off, I'm going to look at Manchester. If Glasgow don't get this, I could see it being Manchester, being truly honest. I know some people have said Birmingham, but I'll talk a bit more about that later on. So, Manchester are going in with the AO Arena, and they have got an absolute massive venue size. It's 21,000 in capacity, by far the largest in the UK, and it's been known to host a massive amount of events. It was built in the late 90s as part of the bid to host the 2000 Summer Games, which of course then went to Sydney. And instead of that, they had the venue there. They hosted the 2002 Commonwealth Games, and it was used as part of some of the events that were taking place during those events. And of course, in more recent times, the venue was used for the We Are Manchester concert back in 2017. At the moment, in terms of availability, there's 3 events currently taking place between April and May. 2 of which are in April, and then Magic Mike will be performing at the venue on the 2nd of May, so quite early on. Which doesn't give you quite 6 to 7 weeks, but it gives you at least 3 to 4 to be able to put this contest together. So they might have to reschedule events and push them a bit further into April, but who knows? We could very well get a contest in later May. It has been done before, but I think they're still going to try and push for mid-May, so that might be a little bit of a concern. The AO's big advantage is that it sits more or less right on top of Manchester Victoria Station. Victoria Station is one of 2 major train stations in Manchester itself, Piccadilly being the other one, which is probably serves more areas than Victoria does, both of which are in about just around a mile of each other. The good thing about Manchester is that everything is sort of in close proximity to one another, so in terms of people travelling to the venue, it's pretty much quite easy to get to. It's within walking distance. Not to mention, at Victoria's Rail Station, there is a tram stop as well. The tram connects the outer line areas of Manchester with the city, so if you are travelling, if you are staying further out, there is that connection there as well. High amounts of accommodation, the travel networks are brilliant. The venue is in the heart of the city centre, so that's even better. And they've got the busiest international airport outside of London as well. It's not directly on top of Manchester City area, but There are travel links that do provide a connection from the airport to the city, so there is that as well. And I think something that bolsters Manchester's bid is the fact that the UK delegation now is based in Manchester. Well, it's based in Salford, which isn't too far out, but it's also within the immediate area. So I think that might also work in their favour. So yeah, I'd say on offer, when what's available, I'd say Manchester's probably got the best chance of hosting it. Moving on from there, I'm going to talk about Liverpool. So, not too far away from Manchester. Uh, it's known obviously for its global impact on culture, especially its prominence in music over the years. Manchester is as well, but I think to international viewers, I think Liverpool might have the edge on that. They intend to use the M&S Bank Arena. It's a smaller venue, a little bit like Newcastle. It's only got around 11,000, but it's still quite a big venue, regardless. This was opened back in 2008, so it's a very new venue in comparison to, say, some of the others. This was formed as part of the celebrations of the European Capital of Culture, which Liverpool was awarded in 2008. So there was a massive year of events going on. So again, highlights Liverpool's cultural side. Since then, they've gone on to host the 2008 MTV Europe Music Awards and the Mobile Awards back in 2010. Of course, they did intend to try and host the 2022 Commonwealth Games. They did go into bidding contention and they fought it off with Birmingham to see who would get the hosting gig for the games, and of course, Birmingham won. So I guess if Liverpool got it, I think those of us who live in Birmingham or near Birmingham could go, okay, we got one, you might as well. It's only fair you got the other. So it would put Liverpool back on the map. The good thing, again, much like Glasgow in terms of Liverpool, is that they also have an exhibition centre right next door. Again, a bit like Manchester, they've got high amounts of infrastructure. I was on Google Maps and I was trying to work out where the venue was. And then within the immediate area where the exhibition centre and the venue are, there's lots of bars and cafes, but there's also a lot of hotels as well. So that could work very well for the artist, not having to travel so far to the venue and just running across the way. I think that would benefit them quite a bit. Of course, there is the travel networks as well, travel links that provide access from the venue to the city. And of course, they have John Lennon International Airport, which is a little way out of Liverpool city centre, but not too far off. I guess the downside to Liverpool's bid is that, a little bit like Leeds, they've got quite a few events going on between April and May. They have also got 5 events, and I guess unlike Leeds, where a lot of the events are taking place throughout the month, these are all within a fortnight of one another, so that might be a massive concern in terms of whether they get the gig or not. But again, there isn't anything to say that they can't get this. So I'm going to move on to the final shortlisted city to host this, and unlike the other 6, where I've actually had to do quite a bit of research on, this one I can actually give you stuff based on first-hand knowledge, and that is Birmingham. So of course, Eurovision fans will know and possibly remember and maybe going to the 1998 contest, which was held in the Utilita Arena. Back then it was known as the National Indoor Arena, and to many of us, we still call it the NIA. But that was in the heart of Birmingham, and this time we're now moving over to Resorts World Arena, which is, unlike some of the areas, it's not in the heart of the city centre. In fact, it's quite some distance out. Although technically Birmingham would be the host city, this is also located in Solihull. People from Solihull will literally tell you it's not Birmingham. Do never call them Brummies. We've boasted a capacity of 15,685, so of the shortlisted venues, it is the second biggest. Obviously, Birmingham have just hosted the Commonwealth Games, So it's already put Birmingham on the map of saying, yes, we can hold major international events and do it successfully. The arena and the NEC, which is our exhibition centre located virtually next door, went on to host some of the events of these games. And of course, the venue also this year hosted the ITV's Concert for Ukraine back, I think it was around June-ish. So Jamala, amongst others, performed at the on the night, and again highlights Birmingham's link with Ukraine. Of course, they'll have to put this in more depth, but we have done that as of recent. So, given how recent we have hosted international events, this might work out in Birmingham's favour. A massive advantage for Birmingham is that, in terms of its availability, this works in two ways. First of all, there's only two events that's taking place, well, at least when I checked, at the venue between April and May. May is completely clear of events. So these two events are taking place in April. Birmingham's major advantage is that they have two very large sized venues, and despite the Utilita Arena also having a couple of events on during that point, they do not clash with the dates at Resorts World. So rather than having to reschedule dates, they could very well just move the venue. So they do have that advantage compared to other cities, so they might put that into question. So, like I mentioned, it's around 13 to 14 miles outside of the city centre. It doesn't feel it, but it is quite a distance. So, if you're travelling, you would end up having to either get a train over to Birmingham International Station, or you would um, probably come along with private transport, which there is lots of parking. And I don't think I've ever seen so many car parks in one immediate area, but there is a massive amount of parking. So there is that additional benefit. They've got a massive amount of hotels within the immediate area, so it would work well for artist delegations and the press. And Birmingham obviously has a high amount of accommodation in the city centre, so there is that to talk about as well. We've got the metro extension that's been built as well. They've got that done in time for the games. That would link you direct uh, from the city centre to New Street Station, and then you can change over, get the train that way. But also, the major advantage for Birmingham as well, when you think of travel, is that the airport is literally right on top of the venue. So at Birmingham International, there serves the train station, but there is also an airport shuttle link that will take you direct to the airport. You're on it for about 5 minutes, so um, it's literally right on the doorstep. So if you are travelling, say, to Birmingham Airport, and you are, say, an artist who was going for a respective country, your venue is literally 2 minutes away. So that, I think, would be a massive benefit. I think the only shortfall, maybe, in terms of Birmingham getting this is that they've hosted before, and maybe the BBC and the EBU would like to see another city host. Otherwise, there isn't anything to say that Birmingham won't get it. As time goes on, as much as I'd like to see the North East and somewhere else get to see it, I could genuinely see Birmingham hosting this. I wouldn't be disappointed because at least it's within my own area, and it would be nice to have something on my own home turf. I know we just had the games, but Eurovision tops the games for me. But it would be nice to have that in my own back garden. But um, again, if any other city got it, I would be happy with that. I hope this has helped you out a little. This is just my little insight into each city and talking about what they've got on offer, how they could very well host a contest. But obviously, this is now the time for each city to go away, provide and present their bid in much more depth and how they can do this. And then, of course, the BBC and the EBU have now got to decide who's getting it. So, I'm going to leave this one to you guys. Who would you like to see host the contest? You don't have to say why, just who. And who do you think will get it in the end? Be nice to see what everyone's comments are. So, in terms of from now, if you get any more updates, I'll do a little mini video on news, etc. Um, Otherwise, next time I probably do a video will probably be either for a national final or it will be if an entry randomly drops. So, and obviously I will do a video on the host city once we get that. So yeah. Anyways, thanks for watching. Once again, apologies if my cat is a very loud cat, but she's calm, so that's the main thing. Anyways, take care of yourselves and I'll see you soon.